Wasteland Reaper says, on MythBusters, you and Jamie and everybody else were always talking about how you use tools in ways for which they were never intended. Yes. Do you still find yourself in those situations sometimes? Oh, yes. So I'll tell a story about this. At the very beginning of MythBusters, when we first started filming, so we had filmed the pilots in 2002, and now it's like March of 2003, and we're making the show. And the contract that they sent us to be in this first season of the show, we just signed it. And in it, so the contract included some really specific things about stuff we were not allowed to do. For instance, we were not allowed to put a cheater on a wrench. What this means is if you have a crescent wrench and you are, or even a socket wrench, and you are attempting to remove something and you cannot move it using the leverage of the machine, of the tool handle you have, you can take a piece of pipe. One might, for instance, take a piece of pipe and put it over the end of that wrench, that's a cheater, and get yourself a lot more mechanical advantage for turning the thing. Now, there's a whole bunch of ways in the making and repairing and assembly of things that using a big cheater could be a huge problem. You could easily over-torque the bolts on the head of your car engine rebuild if you did not follow spec. But within this first MythBusters contract was the proviso that we not put a cheater on a wrench. And I was like, what kind of hanging Chad ancient contract term is this from some build show from 1,000,000 years ago? There's no way we should be taking advice from our contract as to how to use tools that we may or may not encounter in the execution of this show. But do I still find myself in this situation? Yes, I just learned about the use of a tool in a way I did not expect at all. We had our friends from TWoodfrd here in the cave last week. They were in town for Open Sauce, and we spent a couple of days making something awesome together. I cannot wait till you see this video. It's hilarious. The origin story of the video is that I make a massive error in my understanding of what we are going to build. And when TWoodfrd arrived, the delta between what I thought we were going to build and what they thought we were going to build was very large, and we managed it by building what they wanted to build. We went all the way. It was great. 8x. Yes, what we built was 8x the size of what I thought we were going to build. But when they were here, we were clamping up some paper that we needed to trim, and Hansi went and asked for a big chisel. And so I handed him a 2-inch chisel, which he then used to basically slice this paper so square and true. I had not, of course, a chisel could do that. It just never occurred to me that that would be an excellent use of a chisel. So I really appreciate Hansi from TWoodfrd expanding my mind at what can be done with 2-inch chisels. And the only reason I have a 2-inch chisel is specifically because of TWoodfrd, TWoodfrd's YouTube channel. He is always doing these like ASMR close-ups of using the big flat expanse of a crazy sharp 2-inch chisel to like just peel cellular thick layers of wood off of some repair. And I watched him do that for like the umpteenth time, and I went onto eBay and I bought like a $10 2-inch Craftsman chisel, and then I brought it back here and I sharpened it until I could shave with it. All that was off camera, but that's the kind of stuff I do just to entertain myself. 2-inch chisels are so beautiful. Dave Martin says, how do I pare down my plate spinning? He doesn't mean that literally. He's not a professional juggler. He's saying I'm into too much stuff and I want to be good at all of those things. But burnout is real and I have no chalk line to keep from going beyond. I do a lot of management of the projects. And I do it with my sketchbook, and I do it by making lists. I know I've banged on about list making so many times, but let's just talk about the doing too many things list making. Sometimes when I'm on a plane and I don't have anything to do and I don't feel like looking at my phone, I will just sit down and be like, what are all the projects that are halfway done right now? And, you know, I actually keep in addition to the entire loft behind my table saw being unfinished projects, I also keep a sort of a video cart packed with half-finished projects that all need my attention. And so when I'm attempting to bound the problem of the to-do list that is on an endless scroll, list making is, you know what? It's not necessarily how I bound the problem. It's just how I figure out what I really want to do next. Making the list makes me feel like I have done something to assuage the issue, but I haven't technically, except I've just put the thing back into my brain. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I do is I'll often then look at that list and I'll start to make little notes about, like, what is left on this? What is the hanging? What is the hang up? What do I need to continue? Why am I not going? And I'll make these little notes. We're all dying with a to-do. We're all going to die with a to-do list that is incomplete. That's just that's the reality. I think that where you're getting to is not that there are just too many projects. It's that in the attempting to do too many, you are wearing yourself out. Okay, now I think I'm going to take a totally different approach to this answer, because I suspect then that it might mean, and I'm just speculating here. It might mean that the shop work is like a scarcity model to you. By that I mean, you want to be working on projects all the time, and there's so many of them, you've got to get them done, and so you're not letting yourself off the hook to not do. Not doing is something that's very hard for me to do. And in the very beginning of my post-MythBusters life, which is January of 2016, about a couple of weeks into my post-MythBusters life, after we'd wrapped the show and I didn't have any other jobs and I didn't have anything to do, my wife was like, "You are rushing off to the cave every morning at like 8:30 in the morning. My question," she said, "is, do you need to rush off every day?" And I realized, she's like, "You're just as manic in freelance life as you were when you were making the show." And I realized it was specifically, and so then she said, maybe we could have coffee, maybe we could hang out. And it's a totally wonderful, real, excellent question. And we do now. We do. I go and get coffee. The dog wakes us up now to feed her. Actually, she's been getting up really early lately. 6:30 to 7:15, that little, 4. And then I'll put on some clothes and go get some coffee and come back and we'll hang out, drink some coffee, and, check the day, start talking about the day. Very hard for me to do at first. Did not feel comfortable. I thought, I am sitting here at the house, not doing anything, drinking coffee, and my shop is sitting there empty, waiting for me to make something. I feel that a lot. And my partner was asking me, can you carve out some more space out of your head as well as your life, right? So that the shop isn't pulling me all the time. I can relax to know that it's going to be there. So I'm hoping my experience of my personal experience in this may give you some perspective about finding maybe that you're creating an over scarcity of the resource of working. Because I want to tell you, not only do I get up at a reasonable hour and enjoy coffee with my partner before going off to the cave every day, but on the weekends I also don't do much, and in the evenings I also don't do much. I leave here about 5:30 and we watch some TV and hang out and read and not much else. And on the weekends, some home repair and maybe taking the dog to a nice park, but it's not much more complicated than that. The not doing turns out to have been so important to my overall well-being. I hope that answer was useful to you. Hey, ask one more question. Captain Greebly, love it. Did MythBusters science data ever get saved or have any real-world uses? Is all the data from your experiments lost or on a disk somewhere? It is mostly lost. I've got some notes on my computer, but I'll go even farther and tell you that when we made MythBusters Junior, I brought in a friend of mine to help us build a curriculum on each of the episodes of MythBusters Junior. And we brought that curriculum to Discovery at the end and said, hey, we've built this commensurate curriculum with all 10 episodes of MythBusters Junior. And it's only about 15 grand per to make an episode for each episode so that we can have a curriculum. And Discovery was like, we're not interested in that. That's their prerogative. That's totally fine. But no, we didn't save any of that scientific data. I think Jamie and I are listed as co-authors on a couple of scientific papers that were written during MythBusters episodes, but that's it. And all that does really is allow me to contribute to my Bacon Erdos score. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I wanted to briefly mention that you could become a tested member. I know, everybody is competing for you to become a member of their thing. What I want to express to you is that the Tested membership has become such an important part of the Tested family. We get tremendous feedback from the Tested members, and they expand the stories that we can tell and the things that we have access to. And you can become a part of it right now by clicking on the link below. See you in the chat.